Today on the bench, I want to tie you up a golden stone dry fly pattern. You know, we use a variety of different stone flies, and this one seems to be an overall killer. Make sure you have these materials ready before you tie the fly. For the hook, we'll use a Mustad C53S size 6. We'll use some 8/0 black thread to tie with, some natural deer hair as a tail, some yellow poly yarn for the body, some medium copper wire as the rib, some natural grizzly saddle for the body hackle, some deer hair for the wing, some golden stone dubbing for the head, and a brown neck hackle for the head hackle. To start the fly off, I've put my thread onto the hook, and I've taken a small clump of deer hair. We're going to tie him for the tail, and I like it stacked, so put it in a hair stacker. Now give it a good stack. Pull it gently out of your hair stacker. Make sure you pull off all these, make sure it's not too much either. We want just so it's a small clump. You know, some that just fits in between your fingers, well, that much. Now what we're going to do is cut it. I want it just past the hook. I want just a small tail, but I want to build up the body about half the way up the hook. So I'm going to cut it about there. Cut it nice and even. And now when you tie it in, start at the back, right where the tail is, just take some light wraps and wrap up. You don't want to pull it too hard. You just want to lightly wrap it. Get the body or the tail tied in, and then as you move back, continue making it tighter and making sure that that hair stays on top of the fly. And again, just keep wrapping over it, making tight loops. And then as you get near the tail again, a couple loose wraps just so it doesn't flare much on you. You want to just keep it so it's just slightly flared at the tail. And there's your tail. Now that we have the tail tied in, I've taken my medium copper wire, and again I'm going to tie it in about, halfway up the hook and tie it back, and this will be used for the rib, to rib the body a little bit later. Now the rib is tied in. I'm going to take my yellow poly yarn, and we just, these flies are quite big, so tie in that yellow poly yarn, tie it all the way back, right back to the tail. Then wrap your thread back forward, up over that poly yarn right halfway up, and then wrap in the body. And keep it nice and full. Now that we have the body tied in, I've taken a nice long grizzly saddle, and I don't want it too long. I want these to be, about the hook gap length. And make sure it's wrapped in good. If you've got excess, cut it off. And then we're going to wrap it back and just palm her back. I like about, 3 or 4 wraps back just to give that fly body. When you get near the tail, we're going to take our wire and just start wrapping back over that hackle to hold it into place. And again, just take some wraps, reversing the order. Make sure you reverse through, don't worry about holding down any of those hackles. And bring that up right near the hook bend, or right near the halfway point, and tie off. So now that we have the rear half of the fly done, I want to put a nice big wing in there. And I've taken a fairly good sized clump of my deer. You can see how big that is. We're going to put it in the hair stacker. And again, I want it nice and even, stacked. And I like this wing flared. When I tie it in, I want it flared, because when stoneflies are on the water, they're sitting flush, but they have big wings. So again, pick out all this fluffy stuff at the front. Go back so it's as long as just to the tips of your tail coming down. That's where you want it. And again, take a couple loose wraps always to start, so it doesn't go too crazy on you. And then wrap over, and just continue to wrap until you have a nice secure wing. And that wing will flare, and that's fine. You want it to flare. and then cut off your excess. Now that we have the wing tied in, and you can see it's quite flared, but after I tie in my hackle in my body, I'm going to actually tie over it so it sits down just a little bit. We're going to tie our hackle in right at that deer hair. This will be used to hackle the head of the fly in a little bit. And again, just have it close to where your wing is. Now take your golden stone dubbing, and we're going to dub a head. And again, you can use the yarns and things like that, but I like this golden stone dubbing. It makes a real nice head on the fly. And it's just a little bit darker than our body. We always want the head just a little bit darker. So dub on a little material, and again, pull your wing back and tie just over your wing, and that's going to help sit your wing down a little bit. And keep wrapping over and start forming a head on the fly. And again, continue dubbing. We want a decent sized head on this fly until you're just in front of the eyelet. Right about there. Now that we have the head of the fly tied in, it's fairly, it's fairly pointy. You can make it as big as you want, but it is a dry fly, so you want to keep it fairly small. Now we're just going to hackle that head just to help that fly sit up nice and buoyant in the water. And I'm going to take normally 4 to 5 wraps around the head until I get right up top, and pull that hackle back as you tie, and then tie off right at the eyelet. And never crowd your eyelet. Always give yourself room for a little bit of a head on the fly. And cut off your excess. So to finish the fly off, as we always do, I'm going to take the whip finisher and do a couple whips. And again, as you can see, I always like just a pronounced head on the fly. A lot of times people tie right up to the eyelet, but this gives you the opportunity to change the color. Maybe you want a slight attractor on the very front, black, red, orange. Always gives you room to change up the fly. So there it is, the finished golden stone dry fly pattern. If you're fortunate enough to have a stonefly hatch on your local waters, this is a must-have for your box. To watch all our latest Sport Fishing on the Fly episodes and to order Sport Fishing on the Fly merchandise, head to www.sfotf.ca. And if you would like to book an adventure like this one showing, head to ontheflyadventures.ca and book yourself the trip of a lifetime.